Hey. What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. I really hope you guys are having a fantastic day. If you're on summer break, I hope that's going well. If you started school, I really hope that's going well too. So today's back to school themed video is how to take notes that are quote aesthetic, but also how to take those quote aesthetic notes quickly. I've divided this video up into 3 categories. Number 1, how to take aesthetic notes. Number 2, how to take notes effectively and quickly, and you can use the aesthetic note-taking tips for that part too, and number 3 is just random other note-taking tips. Anyway, that's enough of an intro, let's get started. So to take good looking notes, it's not as complicated as you might think. You see on Pinterest all of these super intricate, complex, very pretty looking notes, but honestly you don't need to do all those fancy doodles and fancy lettering to make your notes look really neat. So the only supplies that I really use and the supplies that I would recommend are some black pens that you really like. I use these Sharpie pens that I've mentioned like a billion times before, and I'd also recommend some highlighters or marker colors and a couple of just colored pens. Really simple things that you already have around the house and that you could just get at the grocery store or whatever. You don't need to spend like hundreds of dollars on fancy calligraphy supplies. And the most important thing I would recommend is good notebook paper that suits your writing style. So for me, when I'm writing, I press down super hard on the paper, and since I write like that, I can't buy super flimsy notebook paper. I have to buy really thick notebook paper so my pencil doesn't rip through the page. Because that's my writing style, I really prefer thick notebook paper that's college ruled and that's smooth instead of like a weird texture, because sometimes notebook paper is like that. And yes, I'm reading some of the stuff off my phone because if I didn't write down what I was gonna say, this video would be a total disaster. And now moving on to the tips. Use one color for everything instead of multiple colors. Oftentimes in note-taking tip articles or whatever, you see highlight important words in yellow, highlight important formulas in green, highlight important definitions in purple. Instead, to make your notes look a little bit more cohesive, use one colored highlighter, so like blue or something, and then underline important words in blue, highlight important formulas also in blue, and then cloud bubble important definitions also in blue. This leads to a more cohesive look just in your notes in general, and also it saves you time because you don't have to switch colors every 5 seconds. The next tip is instead of spending time making subtitles and titles all pretty, you know, like in those fancy calligraphy fonts or whatever, that takes a lot of your time, simply write them in the color that you've been highlighting and underlining and cloud bubbling in. So for the purposes of this example, that would be blue. And then use a black pen or a pencil for all other notes. So then only the titles and subtitles are written in blue. Another way you could do the titles aesthetically is have a pen that's also in blue or whatever color the highlighter is that you're using, and write the title in blue pen and then take the blue highlighter and highlight over that title. So then the title is written in blue and is highlighted in blue. And then another thing that I really think adds to like the creativity of your notes is instead of doing like normal bullet points where you just fill in the little circle, do circle bullet points. So just draw a circle every time you want to do a bullet point, and then when you're done taking notes, go back through and take that blue highlighter or whatever highlighter color you're using and fill in all the little circles so then the bullet points are all in blue. And that just makes it look cohesive. And the way I take notes is I just do bullet pointed lists, and then whenever I have a subsection I indent, and then if I have a subsection of that I'll indent again, if that makes sense. And basically what I'm trying to say by this is every time that you indent for a new subsection, do a different style of bullet points. What I do is the very first section I'll do a circle bullet point, and then for the subsection of that I'll do a dash, and then if for some reason I have a third subsection I'll do an asterisk for that. And then if you just keep that consistent throughout your whole note sheet, then it'll look really nice. Now moving on to the how you can take notes quickly section. You can obviously use the aesthetic note tips for this section too, but these tips are just some tips as to how to save time when you're taking notes, like if you just want to go faster or if you're taking notes off of a lecture. So tip number 1 is unless you're taking notes for someone else, your notes don't have to be in perfect English. As long as you can understand what they're saying and will be able to understand them when you come back to them, that's all that's important. Don't be too formal when you're taking notes too. You can literally write like how you would write a tweet or something. Once again, as long as you can understand what you're saying, that's fine. You can still have your notes look aesthetically pleasing, but they don't have to be written perfectly. Also, another note-taking tip is use examples that are relative to your life or to pop culture. So this is a good tip for retention and memory, because then when you're going back through your notes and if you don't understand what you're saying, but you have an example of something that may like jog your memory. So example of this that I thought of when I was taking AP World like 2 years ago is when Martin Luther King pinned the 95 Theses to the wall, and he split the church. I thought of that like Zayn leaving One Direction, and now I will remember that literally for forever. So that's a fun tip. Then don't change the style of your notes every time you sit down and take notes. Just do what works for you and stick to that, because then you'll get a lot faster at taking notes, whether that's bullet points, 2-column Cornell. Pretty sure like Cornell and 2-column are the same thing, but you know what I'm saying. Next, use symbol shortcuts when you're writing notes. You don't have to write out every single word. Use the plus sign for and. Use an arrow to symbolize leads to or causes or signifies. Use the equal sign, use the greater than sign, use the less than sign. Also use word shortcuts. Write like you would be writing a text. This is really relevant when you're taking notes on a lecture that's moving quickly. Drop the vowels from certain long words. My notes read just like my text messages read. Instead of writing people, I'll say PPL, or because, BC, with W, without WO, the letter U instead of you, the letter U, the letter R instead of your, the at symbol for at, THO for though, and then just the letter R for ARE. You can also use just common shortcuts, so like re for regarding, prob for a lot of things, min for minimum, max for max, VS for verses, and X for example. You can also invent your own word and symbol shortcuts too, as long as you know what they mean. And then the final tip under this section is if you're taking notes on a lecture and you get behind, which happens to all of us sometimes, is don't try to frantically catch up. Instead, just put ellipses, so you know, the ... and then at the end of the lecture, ask another student or professor or the TA what was said at that point where you got cut off. If you spend a bunch of time trying to get caught up, then you're just gonna get more behind. And then just some other random note-taking tips that didn't fall into the other two categories. Number one is I prefer to use notebook paper rather than notebooks, because obviously that's more portable, so you don't have to carry around huge notebooks everywhere you go. You can just carry around a couple sheets of paper, and you aren't wasting pages if you don't use the whole notebook, which rarely happens that you ever use a full entire notebook. Also, organize your notes every single time before you come to class, so you know what you're doing and nothing gets lost. And the last tip is if you have a lot of notes and you've either put them into a binder or just have a notebook, make a table of contents and number all of the pages, because that'll be so much easier for you when you go back and study. It doesn't take that long. Just do it and you'll be glad you did it. Anyway, that's it for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this notes themed back to school video. I've really been loving making the back to school videos this year. They're just so fun, and I hope you guys enjoy them too. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below anything you want to, subscribe to my channel, turn the notification bell on, follow me on Instagram, and that's it. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!